Sherry, over to you. You've been involved in getting your community prepared for disasters, and talk about the FEMA program in Alabama that you wanted to share.
So nationwide, Prepareathon. So April 30th is usually the biggest day. It doesn't really matter when. It happens year-round. Mm-hmm. And, you know, what we found, what we've talked a lot about tonight is really knowing your area and knowing how important it is to be aware of the disasters that are more common in your area. So one of the things the Prepareathon is about is bringing it to your community.
Sure.
Yeah, so we want everybody to work together and be able to help each other. So they have a website you can go to and you can sign up and learn about some of the things that go on there. The 3 things you see there that they're really stressing is that, you know, we take action, we get counted for what we're doing, and that we spread the word so others are aware of it. Mm-hmm. So a lot of things happen at different levels. So what a lot of people are familiar with are the news channels showing a hospital doing a major disaster, how to handle that if something happens in the area. But there's other things going on. There's a program that we go into the schools and talk to children and the teachers, and they leave with a pillowcase and a book about the importance of being prepared.
Wow, that's a great idea.
It's a great idea. So we also do simple things like making an emergency kit, anywhere from groups are doing them in medicine bottles, empty medicine bottles, to the kit itself, and then learning how to protect your papers. So there's everything. A lot of the Boy Scouts are now getting involved in the Girl Scouts, getting information out there, especially with the scams that can happen after.
And you can go to that website, I understand, you can actually sign up. Is that to get information ongoing and when you need it?
You
right?
sure can. So you can go there and find a typical disaster that you want to learn more about, whether it's a tornado or a fire, you know, what's coming in your area, or you can look at the calendar in your area. Mm-hmm. You can, and that way you can sign up and go where you want to go. You know, it's free education for everyone. And if you're interested in doing some kind of educational event, you can also register that, and it'll post on that calendar for others to see what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. And there's 10 ways to participate, I understand, is that
They're
right?
focusing on 10 ways.
Wow.
So getting folks to participate, to know it's not hard, you know, and one is being aware of the scams that are out there. You know, another one's getting those documents ready, you know, participating in an event in your area. You know, again, we've talked tonight how we have it happen in different states, and, you know, we see too often, right, that the disaster hits and now we're scrambling. Now we're scrambling to get things ready, and we want to try to avoid that. You know, through all those tornadoes that hit Alabama, the communities that did the best had a plan.
Wisconsin, I know you've got different kinds of disasters. We kind of touched on that a little bit. Maybe to expand on some of the things going on that you or the AARP organization have been involved in Wisconsin.
Yeah, one of the things we did last fall around our day of service, which AARP does every year, is to create disaster preparedness kits to disseminate out into the community in Milwaukee. You know, there's a lot of people that may be older, they're isolated, they may be widowed, they may not have family members in the area, and so we really wanted to reach out to those folks. We did so through groups like Interfaith and the United Way and the Red Cross, and partnered up in those coalitions to make sure that there's nobody in the community that doesn't at least have some information in their hands. And so that's one of the things that AARP in Wisconsin did, but I know there's a lot of tremendous work that's being done around the country around disaster preparedness as well. So we try to help in our little way, right?
Sure.
And hopefully we have a big impact in what we're doing.
Very good.
And, you know, again, there's so many of us that have dogs or cats or whatever it may be, and if you're living out in rural areas, you get working dogs. I mean, these are a valuable part of your farm or ranch operation, and so you need to have supplies ready for them just as you would your other family members. And, you know, in their case, sometimes, you know, you're going to have to also make sure that you include them as part of an evacuation strategy, you know, because there's, you know, oftentimes, you know, dogs have that sixth sense, you know, and they may be hiding in the case of emergency, and so you're going to have to take a little bit of extra effort to make sure that you're prepared to handle it.
It wasn't something we had prepared. I want to just see if you had any kind of response for our rural audience out there. And it kind of tipped me when you talked about animals. What about on a farm, horses, cattle, hogs, livestock, and multiple buildings? Anything that might come to mind that these folks might be doing that little bit different than someone who, I know, obviously your home is going to be very important if you're living in a city, but how about out in the country?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best advice is the family first. You know, I mean, I think there's a lot of obviously investment in your assets on the farm or ranch, but you really need to focus on your family first and make sure that those things are secure. Unfortunately, you just never can tell what's going to come across your property, and really the only thing you can prepare for is, boy, if something does happen, I'm going to make sure my loved ones are taken care of.
Good
and in
point.
the aftermath, you know, we'll just have to see what happens and recover from there. But you know, I think unfortunately, you know, you have, again, in different parts of the country, different disasters, and it's really difficult to suggest, you know, to one family that may be in South Dakota or a family that's in Alabama, you know, here's what you're going to need to do as a general rule. But
they can get on that
first.
website, Sherry, no matter if they're in town or in rural areas, and that might be one of the answers, to get on that preparedness website.
Get on that preparedness and ask. The magic is after, right? When people come together and work together, and we've seen that. We've seen rural counties where the kits come along and people start putting together a little livestock pen, and the cows are all coming in. But as Sam said, the family first.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we've seen that too often.
Our church bulletin, first time I've seen it, just happened to be last Sunday. They put a full page in the back about disaster preparedness. If you're coming to church and you know there's going to be bad weather, make your choice. But if you're in church and here's what our plan is, A, B, C. So it's funny that when you mentioned a public place, this is something that more and more people are recognizing. So we've had a great conversation. We're up against that time when we want to make sure the two of you have ample opportunity to have some final thoughts. Sherry, we'll start with you. Good to have you here from Alabama. And how would you close things out with everything we talked about to leave with our viewers?
So we've talked about a lot. You know, one thing I would say is in Alabama, we have a lot of mobile homes. There's not a safe spot to go to in that mobile home. Since our tornadoes, we've seen a lot of mobile home parks go ahead and build tornado shelters right within the park. So they have a plan now. But I strongly encourage that if you're in one, make sure you have a safe shelter. It's tough for people to leave their homes. You know, you don't think it's going to happen to you. No,
what about around the country, no matter what state they're in, AARP is there to help?
AARP is there to help. All sorts of resources that can help you get where you need to go, can help you find out ways to get a kit together, everything.
Thanks for joining us tonight. Good to have you here.
having
Have a
me.
safe trip home. All right.
Thank you.
Very good. And Sam Wilson, good to have you as well from Wisconsin. Your final thoughts.
Well, you know, we have talked a lot about a lot of information tonight, and people need to be reminded to go to www.aarp.org/RFD, where you'll find links to a lot of the information that we discussed tonight. You know, Sherry mentioned the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts being a part of the process of emergency preparedness, and having been a Boy Scout myself, I always hearken back to the motto of the Boy Scouts, is be prepared.
Be prepared.
And I think we can all learn from that and take that to heart and make sure that we're ready in case, unfortunately, a disaster might happen.
We had perhaps a question or two, I know, about the preparedness kit here. This is not something that AARP is marketing, but if they wanted to get something like that, an outdoor type store?
Yeah, that's what we'd suggest. You know, in most communities, either you might have a farm supply store or an outdoor store. You know, in most of those places, you're going to be able to find a kit, if not exactly like this. It's going to be very familiar, or very similar, I should say. Yeah. And you know, the things you're looking for is to make sure that you're going to be able to have first aid treatment. You're going to have some emergency supplies. So most of them will have that.